Another Wednesday's come and gone, and I've got some comics. Let's talk about them. Hey, welcome to 9 Panel Grid. This week, we've seen memory manipulation, road-weary travelers, and biomechanical post-it notes. But we're going to kick things off this week with Black Cloak number 11, written by Kelly Thompson with artwork by Meredith McLaren. So I thought this was a really good culmination of the second arc of this storyline that we've seen here from Kelly, and I thought it kind of did everything that it was supposed to do, albeit I feel like this was definitely written more for the trade than it was the single issue, as we had a bit of a gap here between issues, and it was kind of difficult for me to jump back into the story and find out, like, where are we, what's happening, what's going on. I found my footing eventually, but it definitely is going to read better sequentially in order as opposed to like having big gaps between there. The artwork style that Meredith brings to this book is very unique, very cartoony, with very thick lines. I really enjoy what she's bringing to the book here. It's definitely different than almost any other book that you're going to get from modern comics right now. And Kelly brings a very whimsical yet, I don't know, grounded approach to this story that deals with detectives, following the trail of a murder mystery, basically. This story has a lot of nice ties to the first arc as well, as we're dealing with magic and the disappearance of magic and the manipulation of magic, as well as we see that a mystical creature can even still be found in this magical world. So, all in all, I thought that Black Cloak wrapped up pretty nicely. With our next book, let's talk Dust to Dust number 2, written by Phil Bram with artwork by J.G. Jones. I feel like what I said about the first issue is going to be echoed a lot with what I say with the second issue. The artwork is stunning. The color palette really draws you into the time frame, the Dust Bowl era. It's really like, seeped in sepia tone. However, the story itself, which revolves around the township and particularly a sheriff and a photographer working for the Chicago Tribune, as they kind of stumble upon a murder mystery. The thing is, that murder mystery we were somewhat introduced to in the issue number 1, whereas they found out that someone may have been murdered. In issue number 2, we don't get a lot more to the storyline, except for the fact that the sheriff is kind of picking up on the fact that it's probably not anything that was not treacherous and maybe not malicious. It's very much a murder, but that's as far as we've gotten here. This is a real slow burn type of series so far within the first couple issues. So you have to kind of know that ahead of time, because if you're looking for a hook at the end of each and every issue or throughout the series of issues, you might not get that. It's going to be something that you have to be along for the long ride to see where this all plays out, because again, it's not giving you those little things each and every issue that's going to keep you coming back for more. Overall, again, the artwork is stunning. The story is very much a slow burn, but I think it might be one that's worthwhile to stick around for. Next up, we have Long Cold Winter number 2, written by Francesca Perillo with artwork by Stefano Cardicelli. This again is a really fun issue here, as we're dealing with kind of like a lone wolf and cub type of story where we have a robotic figure who is basically sought out by this a smaller robotic character whose kind of goal is to get them to this mythical promised land, basically, where they can live in peace without the scrutiny of human beings and without the being under the thumb of the government, who is basically, I don't know, basically monetized, even the oxygen that we all need to live. So this is a really cool adventure story with a very unique art style that's very graffiti, very gritty, but not like textured gritty, but like almost just like thick and chunky, basically. The color palette is very vibrant, even though we're dealing with a landscape that is very much desert. So it's a really cool juxtaposition of those ideas and thought patterns. In this issue, our main character, we kind of get to look into his past a little bit and kind of see why he has been someone that bounty hunters have been going after, why he is somewhat of a loner type character, like kind of living in solitude. And we see some of the transgressions in the past here that he is basically maybe not atoning to, maybe that's not the right word, but basically the reason that he is the way he is due to the things that he's done in the past here, which are very unkind, to say the least. Overall, again, this is a really fun kind of story. It's a breezy read. I think it's going to be a book that you pick up for the artwork alone at the very least, but the storyline is definitely something fun enough to keep you moving along. Next up, we have Psylocke number 3, written by Alyssa Wong with artwork by Vincenzo Carrazzu. So this is a continuation on this fun series, basically, where we're dealing with Quanin Psylocke, as she has basically been tasked herself with, basically tracking down these children who have been kidnapped here, and that they've been kidnapped to harvest mutant growth hormone. She's teamed up with John Greycrow, and what's happened in the previous issue is that basically John Greycrow has been taken out of the picture. He's been, kidnapped. Something basically dastardly has happened here, and his arm was straight up pinned to Quanin's door to say, "Hey, come find us if you want more of this." It's a really cool action story. However, it feels very much of like a formula that Marvel is doing right now, where they have these characters going to seek out, usually in these cases, children who have been kidnapped, and, action ensues. That seems to be like a lot of what's happening in these solo storylines of not even just X-Men books, but Marvel books in general. It's kind of just like I don't know, the boilerplate, like have solo character here, do this here. That's not to say it's a bad story. I think that Alyssa Wong is doing, like, fun things with the task at hand. It just doesn't feel like it's wholly unique with the story that it's delivering. Vincenzo's artwork here as well, very much house style for Marvel. Not a bad thing, just feels like it is something that you were going to be delivered in almost every other Marvel book here. So it doesn't stand out amongst the rest here. There's nothing unique that is being delivered here. Very good, just not, I don't know, breathtaking. Overall, Psylocke, it's a good book. I just kind of would expect Marvel to really push the boundaries a little bit more. And with our next issue, we have Redcoat number 9, written by Jeff Johns with artwork by Brian Hitch. This does what any good issue of Redcoat has done in the past 10 issues, which is it crafts a fun, entertaining story that's not incredibly heavy, but it delivers something very akin to the Joseph Campbell archetype of the hero's journey. This is a one and done issue where Simon Pure, our main character, teams up with Johnny Appleseed, the kind of the hero of the tall tales that we've all heard from as children, and we kind of see kind of something similar that we saw with the storyline with Albert Einstein, which is that Simon teams up with an incredibly selfless character and learns and grows through that. Albeit that was an entire arc, this is done so in a one shot kind of like singular storyline. Johnny kind of, makes this agreement that they're friends now. They're going to meet up once a year, and every time that they meet up, basically you can see that there's cracks in Simon's armor, that are showing now, and Johnny is able to kind of, speak to him and really show him like, hey, there's a better way. There's, my approach to doing the things that I do. I do so because it's for the betterment of the people. You can decide to shut yourself up and wall yourself off from everyone because you don't want to seek out emotion and you don't want to take on responsibility, but that's an incredibly lonely road that you're going to be walking. Simon starts to understand that and see that, and it's really cool how everything plays out because they do have an adventure where Johnny, you see, kind of has a little bit more control over magic than we've ever really assumed in all of the stories that we've heard previously. So it was a really fun adventure type story where Simon learns a little bit more about how to be heroic. It kind of moves that needle forward on the timeline of the unnamed universe to now where we're getting closer and closer to, matching up with the times of Junkyard Joe and Geiger and so on and so forth. We still have a ways to go, but they're getting closer and closer to that point. So overall, Ghost Machine continues to do great work. Redcoat continues to be my favorite book from the publisher. Next up, we have Superman Lex Luthor Special Number 1, written by Joshua Williamson with artwork by Eddie Barros. This one took me totally by surprise, as I didn't really anticipate reading this, because if you know me, I kind of don't like one-shots, I kind of don't like tie-ins, and, I tend to skip them more often than not because it's very, very rare when you get something that is worthwhile, that moves the story forward, and really, I don't know, says something that speaks to the change that can happen within a character or within an entire storyline of a book. this kind of plays with those ideas. I think that Joshua Williamson does a fantastic job of weaving this not only into the larger story that he's telling in Superman, but also the story that he told within the House of Brainiac storyline that took place within Superman and Action Comics. But not only that, but it ties into even the things that are happening within the DC All In special and the Absolute Universe. That's a lot of heavy lifting, and I think he does so magnificently. This all revolves around the new Lex Luthor, his memory loss, if you will, and how he is kind of basically the nicest version of Luthor that we've ever seen before. But there's things that maybe the universe needs from the old Lex. There's something that maybe his intellect and maybe his approach could be of the benefit of the DC universe. Superman himself has to kind of grapple with those notions and grapple with, is he going to be able to take on the responsibility of having old Lex back, or is the world truly better just having new Lex? I don't know. It's a weighing kind of situation on him. Overall, I think that he does a fantastic job of kind of, again, bringing in all of these different threads here. And we also see that there's kind of a linkage between young Lex Luthor of it, in his childhood, and young Clark when he was with Ma and Pa Kent for the very first years of his life. Really cool stuff here. Great artwork by Eddie Barrows here as he brings a totally different approach to then anything that we're getting from Superman proper. And I really enjoy the kind of the textured approach that he brings to all of the pages within this book. Overall, again, totally surprised by this. Was an absolute stunning book. All right, let's talk Ultimate X-Men number 11, written and drawn by Peach Momoko. We're getting closer and closer to all of these kind of divergent storylines within the pages of Ultimate X-Men kind of like coming together now as we have the Children of the Atom cult. We have, our main characters and what they're dealing with just within the school. We have the Shadow King himself. And like all of these things are getting closer and closer now to actually becoming something of a conflict as it's been a very slow burn here. Like we've talked about Ultimate Black Panther being a slow burn. This is arguably an even slower burn type of book because we're getting bits and pieces from all of these different factions, and these characters are being introduced at basically like a breakneck pace. But I think it's all starting to come together, and it's all starting to make a little bit more sense here if you've been along for the ride that Peach Momoko has delivered. The artwork continues to be exactly what you would expect from Peach Momoko. I like the painterly quality that she brings to the artwork here. I think that the line work is really fantastic. Her storytelling capabilities really draw your eye exactly where it needs to be. It's within the storyline itself where it does not hold your hand, right? So you're going to be moving around and bouncing around very quickly. Now, that could be to the detriment of some readers here. If you kind of take the time to really, look back and figure out, your footing on this, I think it's going to be worthwhile. But I can totally understand why people would be like, you know what, this is too difficult of a read for me. I think I need to bow out. Overall, this issue delivers, again, more of those converging things here as we have the character of Maystorm kind of building out her own crew of people here that wants to take the fight forward. That's a little bit outside of the Children of the Atom. We see that the Shadow King has kind of somewhat removed himself from the Children of the Atom themselves. And again, all of these things are coming in here. I think within issue 12 here, which will be a calendar year within Ultimate X-Men as a series, I think that we're coming across what's going to be a bigger focus on the fight itself and bringing together this book into the Ultimate Universe proper, as we saw little bits and pieces from things like the Ultimates and Ultimate Black Panther specifically within this issue. And with our runner-up book of the week, let's talk Ice Cream Man number 43, written primarily by W. Maxwell Prince, but with a variety of different writers on here, and drawn by Martin Morazzo. So this issue was kind of billed as a kind of a special issue as we've gotten a number of different writers here doing one-page horror stories. And I think that it was actually done in about the most effective way that I could ever have imagined it coming through. Writing a one-page story, regardless of genre, is going to be incredibly difficult because you have to get the reader's attention. You have to write something that resonates and delivers, something that has a beginning, middle, and end. To do so in one page is really tough, but I think that the talent that has been shown in this issue delivered every single page. I don't think that any of these one-page stories that we've gotten within the 24 pages in this issue, I don't think any of them were a letdown. So we've gotten stories here from writers like Grant Morrison, Dennis Camp, Kelly Sue DeConnick, Matt Fraction, and again, W. Maxwell Prince. They've all hit the mark here, and you saw different approaches for each and every one. We kind of dive into the mythology of the book of Ice Cream Man itself just a little bit here. We get, things like a storyline, particularly where Grant Morrison writes a story where hell freezes over and all of the things that happen when all the bad things go away. We also get stories that really subvert your expectations. I love the story with W. Maxwell Prince, where it really speaks towards a person selling a pair of baby shoes. And when you think about something like that, terrible thoughts already flood your mind. But the way that he delivers that story totally subverts your expectation and still delivers something that is weird and wonderful and eerie in all the ways that you would expect an Ice Cream Man story to be delivered. It does dive into some of the real world things here, like we've seen in the previous issue of Ice Cream Man as well. They don't shy away from that kind of stuff, and they definitely don't here either. So again, it kind of gives all. It's like a Baskin Robbins, array of ice creams. We get all different flavors of horror delivered in this issue, and they're delivered in a stunning manner. Overall, Ice Cream Man continues to be one of the best books that has come out each and every year. And with our top comic of the week, let's talk The Seasons #1, written by Rick Remender with artwork by Paul Azaceta. This was such a fun, whimsical, charming, and yet dark book. The best way I can describe this is kind of like if Rick Remender was tasked with writing something in the tone of the Gene Wilder Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It has that kind of feeling to it where it's like you're having a good time, you're laughing, you're enjoying yourself. But man, there's like this hint of darkness that's always in the background where you're like, whoa, that was really weird and I like it, but I'm kind of scared. That's what this book is all like. The entirety of this issue basically it starts off with the idea of this town that had been there in the past and this carnival basically that comes to town, and all of a sudden that town is wiped out from history. No one is there, no one can be found anymore. It existed, now it is there, and no one is in the town anymore, and it's been abandoned. We don't know what that means. So we get the kind of the beginning of the series based on that idea, and we spent the bulk of this issue dealing with one of our main characters, the Seasons, which is a family that has been named by spring, autumn, summer, and winter. And one of the characters is a mail courier, and the entirety of the issue is just this crazy adventure where she is delivering this parcel of mail, which is to herself, and she's driving all through this town here, trying to make sure that this parcel ends up getting to the place where it needs to be. This leads her through town, through traffic, through a bakery shop, to the tops of buildings. It's a really fun, charming way to go through this storyline. When she actually gets to open the letter, which is to herself, she finds out it's from her sister, which is warning her the carnival that we've seen from the beginning here could be coming to town here for herself. It's a really great way to bring everything back together, to deliver that cliffhanger that we need for the end of this issue to kind of, tell us why we're going to come back for more. Paul, as I said, his artwork on here is absolutely great as well here, as it's a very sparse, very clean approach on here. It's a very minimalistic here, but it kind of speaks towards things like what Rick Remender says was kind of the tone that he was going for in the book, which was like an old school Tintin kind of adventure. I really love the artistic approach on here. I think it fit perfectly with the story that was being told, and it made it absolutely worthy of Top Comic of the Week. So that's what I've got for you this week, but I'm more curious. What did you read, and what were your thoughts? Do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe, and be part of the panel. Leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you next week.